here we go. Alrighty, friends, let's start out by taking a look at our DMR. This is our DMR from yesterday, which was Thursday. As a reminder, today is Friday, so you do have your DMR quiz today at 12:45. So this is your last opportunity to ask questions about anything that you do not understand. Okay, so if there is a certain problem that you have a question about, remember to use that raise hand emoji. That way I can see you and we can get going, okay? All righty, first things first, your name. I'm not gonna write that because I know that you all know how to do that. Next up is round to the underlined digit. The hundreds place is underlined and there is a 5 in the tens place. That tells us that we move up or round forward to the next 100, which in this case happens to be 1,000, okay? Remember, when you are rounding to the hundreds, your answer should have a hundreds number. 1,000 is a hundreds number because we can say it when counting by hundreds. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000, okay? So this 5 in the tens place tells the 9 to round up, and after 900 comes 1,000. Any questions on that rounding correct answer? Okay. Remember, you have great strategies and tools inside of your math folder on Seesaw. You have your rounding notes with the rounding roller coaster, with the rounding rhyme, with the rounding number line. Feel free to open that and use it during your quiz. Next up, solve the equation. I'm gonna plug in, good. Solve this equation. You have 805 plus 159. I will switch cameras and solve that for you on my paper because I do not have a whiteboard, so I am using paper. 805 plus 159. 5 plus 9 ones is equal to 14 ones, which is 110 and 4 ones. 110 plus 0 tens plus 5 tens is 6 tens. 800s plus 100 is 900s. So the answer that you should have typed is 964. 964. Boom, 964. There it is. I'm singing songs for my math. There we go, 964. Okay. Let me bring this back to my face. There's my face. All right. 805 plus 159 is an addition problem. The answer to addition problems is called the sum. So you should have written or selected, I apologize, sum. Any questions on this one, this vocabulary? Lovely. Find the area of the rectangle. We have a nice big hint right here that area is the same thing as length times width. I have a length of 8 yards. I have a width of 5 yards. So I'm going to multiply 8 5 times or 5 8 times. It's easier for my brain to count by 5, so I'm going to do that 8 times. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Because this is area, I know that my answer is 40 inches squared, not 40 inches. That would be perimeter. Okay. Questions on the area problem? Excuse me. All righty. Same rectangle. Now we're finding the perimeter. So now we're going to add 8 plus 8, which equals 16. And we are going to add 5 plus 5, goodness, which equals 10. And I know that 16 plus 10 is equal to 26. See if we can make that bigger. Watch out. There it is equal to 26. I did double the 8s because I have to do all 4 sides. And if the bottom side is 8, that means the top side is also 8. If the right side is 5, that means the left side is also 5 because rectangles have the same size, opposite sides. Same size, opposite side, same side. Oh yeah, I'm writing songs for the future right there. Okay, so we have 26 as our numerical answer. And again, it says inches and it should have said yards. Kiddos, I apologize. Find the perimeter of the rectangle. We have here yards. You should have selected 26 yards, but it's not there, so you would have selected inches, the one with the label. I need to double check the quiz, make sure that that's good to go. Now I'll also communicate with our creator of these to check that. All right. Next step, draw a picture on your whiteboard to solve. Take a screenshot of your picture and upload into Seesaw. I loved this problem yesterday. Mrs. Sousa's son Axel is learning to walk. Holding on to the edge of a square table, he walked completely around the table. If Axel took 5 steps on each side of the table, how many steps did it take him to get all the way around? So we have a nice little piece of paper here, and I'm going to draw a picture. Here is a tiny table. That baby Axel, with the pacifier in his mouth, is going to walk around. He is going to take 5 steps here, plus 5 steps here, plus 5 steps here, plus 5 steps here. So when I add up all 5 of those steps on each side, that's 5, 10, 15, 20 steps. He took 20 steps around the square table. So our answer will say, it took Axel 20 steps to get all the way around the square table. This is our correct answer. Any questions on that one? Yes, Leah.
When I was reading this one, everything was there except for the 5 steps, so I didn't know which one it was.
5 steps didn't show up for you?
No.
How strange. Okay, I apologize for that. I don't know what that's about. Aiden Hampton.
Are you a hacker?
I am not a hacker.
Yeah, okay.
Alrighty, so guys, remember you have your DMR quiz today at 12:45 that will be released to you with the same skills we've been reviewing. Alrighty, now we are getting ready to move on to unit fractions with numerators other than 1. I would like for you to have your fraction notes. That's a blank piece of paper. There we go. Your fraction notes that we took with the words numerator and denominator and the types of models. So go ahead and grab those notes so that you have them handy. We are going to be using these words, numerator and denominator, a lot today, and I want you to make sure you have them in front of your face to remember the difference. Remember, if you don't have your notebook, you can open up Seesaw, and I have uploaded the picture of the notes there as well, so you've got them there. Alrighty. Excuse me again. Partition shapes into parts with equal areas. Express the area of each part as a unit fraction of the whole. We've been doing a really nice job with this standard this week. We're going to move on to what happens when we have more than one unit fraction. So for example, when you're at a party and you decide to eat 2 slices of pizza instead of 1, how do we show that in a fraction? What does that look like? Okay. As you may remember, any fraction with a 1 in the numerator or the top number is a unit fraction. When all unit fractions are present, we have one whole. So for example, with this pizza, no one has eaten any slices, so we have 8 1/8 pieces, which means we have a whole pizza. I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you. This is actually good because it's the video you guys couldn't hear last week or 2 days ago, and now you'll be able to hear it for our vocabulary. Here it is. We're going to start today at the bottom, taking a look at the word denominator. The denominator shows how many parts are inside of a whole. So when we see that we have a 4 as a denominator, we can see that we have 4 parts on the whole rectangle. By the same, we can see that we have 4 parts on our circle model. So the denominator tells you how many parts are on the whole. Then we have the fraction bar. The fraction bar is what separates the numerator and the denominator. You can think of it as the lines that separate or partition or divide the model with which you are working. Finally, we have the numerator. The numerator tells you how many parts are identified or missing or given inside of a fraction problem. So when we want to use the numerator to show a model, we will shade or sometimes remove that many pieces or parts of the whole. So on our rectangular model, we can see that we now have 1/4, or one of the 4 parts shaded. By the same on the circle model, we have shaded one of the 4 parts, so we would call this 1/4. Something that's really important for you to recognize and to not get confused is in fractions, we will never write the color shaded and how many are not shaded. A lot of 3rd graders see a model like this and they call this 1/3 because they see one of them is red and 3 of them are not. So they put a 1 here and then they put a 3 in the denominator position. That is not ever what our denominator has. And you have that in front of you in your notes to remind you. The denominator tells how many parts are in the whole. So all of the item, how many parts were there, okay? So remember, the denominator is never how many are not shaded. The denominator is how many are on the whole item, the whole set, okay? Any questions on any of those vocabulary words? Those are some big words for us, numerator and denominator. I want to make sure that we have a firm understanding of them. So what questions can I answer about numerator, fraction bar, or denominator? Okay, we're feeling all right? Okay, here we go, continuing on. There we go. So remembering that fractions have 3 important parts, now we're going to take a look at what happens when that numerator is not a 1. We've seen great examples all week long of how to count one part of a fraction as a named or as a labeled name. Now we're going to see what happens when we have more than one part in a whole identified. Now that we have an understanding of unit fractions, it's time to investigate what happens when we have a numerator that is not 1. You will notice My numerator in this given fraction is a 3. My denominator is a 4. We know that the denominator shows how many parts are on a model or in the whole of a model. We can see the denominator is 4, and we have 4 parts on the rectangular model and 4 parts on the circle model. So our denominator correctly identifies the number of pieces or parts. But what do we do with this numerator? The numerator is telling us how many parts of the fraction are being shaded. When we shade a fraction, that can represent the number of parts being used, the number of parts that have been eaten, or the number of parts that are remaining. So we could shade 3 of those parts, and this would correctly match the fraction 3/4. The same is true of the circle model. Notice it does not matter which parts of the fraction you shade, as long as you shade the correct number shown in the numerator. There are 3/4 of this circular model shaded. There are 3/4 of the rectangular model shaded. In both of these models, I have shaded 3 1/4 pieces. So even though our numerator is greater than 1, it doesn't mean that we have lost track of our unit fraction. We have simply identified that 3 of the 1/4 pieces are discussed or represented in these models and by the fraction 3/4.
Okay. So this is one reason that it was so important to understand that a fraction is composed of unit fractions. 3/4 is just 3 of the 1/4 pieces with which you are very familiar now. What questions can I answer about these models that you just saw? Anything that's not making sense? Any parts that are confusing? All right. We're either lying or we're feeling good. All righty, here's an example of what you are going to be completing today here in a few moments, okay? You are going to be partitioning a shape into equal pieces, and you are going to be labeling parts as a total fraction.
When you are asked to review your work according to the success criteria or to share how you know you are successful, you should be using the vocabulary that comes directly from the success criteria. Following the video that we just watched, if I were rating myself according to the success criteria, I would be able to say that yes, I successfully partitioned shapes into equal parts because my drawing shows 3 equal pieces. I can also say that yes, I expressed the area of each part as a unit fraction of the whole because I labeled each unit fraction as a name on the model. Notice that I did not say, I know that I was successful because this was easy. Easy does not prove that you understand a concept. So when you are reviewing your work, make sure that you are grabbing the vocabulary directly from the success criteria and talking about exactly what it is you did during the task that tells you you did your work correctly.
Questions. We're getting better at this, but we're going to keep talking about it until we got it down pat, okay? When you're working, you should be actively thinking about what vocabulary have you learned and what way are you proving that your work is correct, okay? Saying it's easy or it's hard is not proving that you know what you're doing. Questions on that? Good. All right. No, William, the whole thing is not with me. We're getting ready to talk about the parts that you're going to work on here in a moment, and then I will release you to work. Alrighty, please, if you would, go to your activities inside of Seesaw. You have unit fractions with numerators other than 1. With your teacher, we have reviewed the success criteria. We have taken a look at the notes and videos. And now we are getting ready to look at our work together today. So click on the Add Response. It says for slides 1 through 10, you will solve 1 with your teacher and then practice 1 for yourself. For slides 11 and 12, you're going to do word problems and create models. Again, we'll do 1 together and 1 independently. So there, William, is the answer to your questions. We'll work on 2 together. The rest will be on your own. Go ahead and click on that Add Response button if you have not yet done so. Alrighty, and you will see here that we have directions at the top of each slide. There are 4 things to do. I want everybody right now to show me with your fingers on camera how many things you have to do. Show me, show me, show me. Some of you guys are showing me 2, and I don't know why, because it says 4. Look at those directions. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. How many things do you have to do on each slide? 4. Yes, I wasn't asking how many problems we're doing together, but how many things do you have to do on the problem 4? I'm pointing this out because I am still returning work back to people from Monday who only did step 1. Okay? This means that this slide right here is worth 4 points. So if you only do step 1 and you ignore the rest, that means you got 1 out of 4 points. That's a fraction, 1/4, which means you have a 25%, which is an F. Okay? It is extremely important that you are taking a look at all pieces of directions and making sure that you turn all of them in, okay? So if you're still getting assignments sent back to you from Monday, I've told you written and I'm telling you live now, it's because you only did step 1. There are 4 things to do, okay? So let's take a look at these 4 and make sure we understand them so that when you're working, you got it down easy. It says partition the shape into equal 1/2 pieces. Okay, 1/2. My denominator is a 2. My notes tell me that a denominator tells me how many parts are on the whole. So I need to make this have 2 parts. I'm going to grab my shapes tool, that line, and I'm going to move it so that my red rectangle has 2 parts. Go ahead and do the same. Boom. And make sure that your parts are even or equal sized. There we go. I have 2 parts. You should have 2 parts. So step 1, partition the shape, done. Several of you would start going on to slide 2 and you would be getting an F because you didn't follow directions 2, 3, and 4. Make sure you do the whole thing. Step 2, label each part as a unit fraction of the whole. My notes tell me that unit fractions are 1 part. So I'm going to label the top as a unit fraction of 1/2. I'm going to label the bottom part as a unit fraction of 1/2 because each of these are 1/2 of the whole. If I am writing, you are writing. So label each part as a unit fraction, done. Step 3 says shade 2 halves. My numerator says how many parts are being used. So if my top number is a 2, I'm going to shade both of these using the highlighter, and that's really important. And here's why. If I shade this with my pen, I'm going to cover up my work, and then Masusa is not going to know if you did your work. So we're going to use the highlighter because highlighters are see-through. Look at that. I can still see your labels. Amazing. So it says shade 2/2 using the highlighter. When we shade a fraction, again, we're human, so it's not going to be perfect, but we do need to cover most of the shape or the part with color, okay? So the top, this is okay. This is not okay. The bottom is not shading, that's scribbling, okay? So when we shade, we're going to cover as much of the shape as we can. You do not have to become perfectionist in Picasso, but I do want you to make sure that you have most of the shape colored. And I colored out of the lines, so I'm going to erase my scribbles because scribbles are not shading. They are a different art skill. And our directions say to shade the part, not to scribble the part. Again, I want to draw your attention to the fact that it says highlighter. If you use your regular ink, you're going to cover up this label and I'm not going to be able to give you a point, okay? So use the highlighter so that I can see the difference between your two steps, all right? Questions on that? Okay. So step 3 is done. I want to point out to you, it's been 3 minutes and we are still on the first problem, and that is okay. Step 4 says identify the denominator, name of the unit fraction, and how many unit fractions are shaded on the whole. All right, my denominator, I forgot what that is. Enter trusty dusty notebook. Oh yes, it's the bottom number of a fraction. The bottom number of this fraction is a 2, is a 2, is a 2, is a 2. Look at that, 4 places where it tells me what the denominator is. So I'm going to write down my 4, or my 2. My denominator of 1/2 is a 2. Because halves have 2 parts. The name of the unit fraction, I wrote the unit fraction 2 times. I wrote it here and I wrote it here. If I forget what a unit fraction is, I have a handy dandy notebook and it says a unit fraction is 1 part. 1 part of a half is labeled as 1/2. Boom. Unit fraction. Done. Next one. How many unit fractions are shaded? That means how many did I color with my dusty highlighter? I colored 2. Both pieces are shaded, so I colored 2 or shaded 2. In this example, these two happen to be the same. In yesterday's work, they were the same. In today's work, they might not be. For example, look at slide 2. Slide 2 asks you to only shade one of the pieces. So when it says how many unit fractions are shaded, you are only going to shade one of them. Hashtag, I just gave you an answer. So please do not get into the habit of thinking, oh, the first one and the last one are the same number. That's not going to be true for every single slide. Okay. So this is slide 1. You will be completing slide 2 on your own. Slide 2 will be on your own, okay? Please go to slide 3, which says with your teacher. Slide 3, which says with your teacher, and it has an orange circle divided into thirds. Again, there are 4 steps to the directions, but these are different directions. In the first example, it asked us to create the partition. In this example, the partitions are already done. It says look at the partitions and use them to help you. Label each part as a unit fraction of the whole. So let's go ahead and label each part. I have 1/3 of my circle on this part. I have 1/3 of my circle on this part. And I have 1/3 of my circle on this lower part. It's a very long 3. I'm going to redo that one. There we go. So step 2, label each part. Done. Step 3, shade 0/3 of the shape using the highlighter. I'm going to get my highlighter and I'm going to put my highlighter away because my numerator says 0. I'm not shading anything. That means none of this pizza has been eaten. It is all still there, fresh out the box. Step 4, identify the denominator, the name of the unit fraction, and how many unit fractions are shaded on the whole. The denominator is the number of parts in the whole. There are 1, 2, 3 parts. So my denominator, or my lower number of my fraction, is a 3. Name of the unit fraction. Unit fraction is 1 part. 1 part is called 1/3. How many unit fractions are shaded in the model? Take a look. It said to shade 0. We did not shade any of them. Questions on that one? Okay. Slide 4 will be completed as practice on your own. This time you're being asked to shade a different amount of the fraction with your highlighter. Go ahead and go to 5, please. Five again has 4 steps of directions. So I'm going to make sure that I do all 4. I'm not going to skip them.
You said that again. It was paused.
Go ahead and go to slide 5. Look at the partitions of the model and use them to help you. Here's my partitions. I have looked at them. Label each part as a unit fraction of the whole. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So that means this part is called 1/4. This part is called 1/4. This part is called 1/4. And my final part is called 1/4. So I have now labeled each part as a unit fraction of the whole. I'll give you a moment to finish that up. The next one says, shade 2/4 of the shape using the highlighter. So I'm going to grab the highlighter. It says to shade 2/4. So I'm going to shade 2 of these pieces. I don't care which 2 you shade. You can do the first 2, you can do the last 2, you can skip and do every other one. Does not matter to me, but you have to shade 2 of them. 2 of the pieces must be shaded. And again, remember, shading is a different skill than coloring. So we're not going to, or than scribbling. So we're not going to do that. That is wrong. We are going to nicely and neatly shade or color as much of the piece as we can. Again, we're not perfect, so you can see some of my edges have tiny parts that aren't shaded, and that's okay. But it does not look like it has been scribbled on by Axel holding a pen. Okay. So step 3, I have now finished. 2 of my 4 parts are shaded or colored. Next one says identify the denominator, the name of the unit fraction, and how many unit fractions are shaded on the whole. The denominator is how many parts are on the whole. There are 4 parts. I can count them, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can also look at the bottom number of my fraction, which is a 4. Name the unit fraction. A unit fraction is one part of a whole. This part is called 1/4. How many fractions are shaded? That means how many are colored in? We colored 2 of these parts. So 2 have been shaded. Okay. 6, 7, and 8 are going to be on your own. Yes, 7 says with your teacher, but it is more of the same thing that we have already done. And you seem to have gotten it because I have not had any questions. So I am comfortable moving on. I do want to look at the word problem. So please take a look at number 9. I apologize, number 11. Number 11 has a word problem. It says with your teacher. Your family is having a pizza and movie night in. The pizza you ordered has 8 slices. That seems important. I'm going to highlight it. You eat 3 of them. Create a model that represents the amount of pizza you ate. Label the unit fraction and use the highlighter to shade the amount you ate. Record the name of the fraction for the amount of pizza you ate and the amount left for the rest of your family. That's a lot to do. So I, in my head, imagine pizza as a circle. So I'm going to go grab a circle and I'm going to put it on my seesaw page. Go ahead and do the same thing. I need to make 8 pieces, so I'm going to make my circle larger so that I can easily draw those 8 pieces. And then I'm going to make my circle the color of crust. We are making a pizza. Now I'm getting hungry.
You should have ate.
I did. I had spaghetti, but I'm still hungry. Alrighty, you have been asked to create 8 slices on this pizza. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that line shape because I know that it's easier for me to fix my mistake with one line that I can move versus a line that I have to erase. And I'm going to make it into half. And I know that 8 is double of 4. So I'm going to duplicate my line and make fourths first. That's my first step to making 8. I'm going to make fourths. Boom. And if I didn't remember how to make 8s, I can always go back and open a new Seesaw window and look at the assignment from earlier in this week where we made 8s. Boom, now you know why I do the way that I do. All right. So we now have fourths. Now we're going to make 8s. I'm going to duplicate my line because it's already as big as a circle. And instead of a plus sign, now I'm going to make an S to cut those pieces that I already have in half. And I'm going to keep turning it until those pieces look like they're the same size. Beautiful. And then I'll make the other side of my S. And again, I don't want to accidentally create 10 pieces with these teeny tiny ones down here. So I'm going to make sure they line up in the center. And I think I can make those a little more even. Boom. There are my 8 pieces. So step 1, it said create a model that represents the amount of pizza you ate. Well, I have a model, but I haven't shown that I have eaten 3 of them. So I've got to shade 3 of these pieces. So I'm going to get my highlighter. I'm going to make it red to look like some pizza sauce. And I'm going to color 3 pieces or shade 3 pieces. So there's 1. Then I ate this piece right here. There's 2. And then this piece over here had more pepperonis on it, so I ate that one. Boom. 3 pieces have been eaten. Your pieces do not have to be touching each other. They do not have to be the exact same pieces that I chose. But you do have to have 3 of them, okay? So create a model that represents the amount of pizza you ate. Done. I ate 3 of the 8 slices. It says label the unit fractions and use a highlighter to shade the amount you ate. Okay, I've got to label my unit fractions now. I know that there are 8 pieces and I know that this slice is 1/8. I know that this slice is 1/8. And some of you right now are dying because I'm not using the label tool and duplicating it. So I will go ahead and do that for you now because you want to see an easier way to make this work. And duplicate. And duplicate. And duplicate. And duplicate. And duplicate. Boom. I've got my 1/8 pieces labeled, and now some of you are getting really annoyed that they're not labeled the same way. And I'm going to let you know you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. You're going to make it in the world. Going back up to these really long directions, label the unit fractions. Done. Use the highlighter to shade the amount you ate. Done. I already did that. Record the name of the fraction for the amount of pizza you ate and the amount left for the rest of your family. That's all right here. Denominator, number of parts in the whole. There are 8 slices of pizza on this whole thing. Name of the unit fraction. 1 part of this pizza is called 1/8. How many unit fractions are shaded in the model? There's 1, 2, 3. 3 of the unit fractions are shaded. My pizza crust. What is the fraction for the amount of pizza you ate? I ate 1, 2, 3 of the 8 pieces. So the fraction name for the amount of pizza that I ate is 3/8. What is the fraction name for the amount of pizza you left for your family? Well, let's look at how many pieces are left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my family has 5/8 of pizza left to eat. And now I have finished my directions. Okay. Slide 12 gives you a word problem about a candy bar. So you will be creating a model and doing all of the steps that we just did about the candy bar in that problem as well. Okay. Slide 13 is looking at your success criteria and asking you to explain how you know you were successful or how you know you were not successful. Remember, it was easy, or I got done fast, or it was hard does not explain that you know what's going on. You need to be using vocabulary, denominator, numerator, unit fraction, shade, partition. That should be the kind of words that I see you type right here telling me how you know you're successful, okay? I am going to send this back to you if this is blank, or if you put something like, it was easy, or it took me a long time. I'm sending it back. That does not use vocabulary. Give me a thumbs up if you understand that. Give me a thumbs down if you have a question about it. Okay, all right, awesome. Now, I'm gonna save my work really quick and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. You have more slides than normal to complete. You are also supposed to take a separate fraction quiz today. I am going to delete that fraction and I'm going to count this assignment as your quiz grade, okay? So instead of having you do this assignment and your fraction quiz, I'm going to delete this. And this assignment that we just talked about is going to be counted as a grade for a quiz, okay? So I'm going to send it back to 2 people. There is no way you got that quiz done. No way. So send that back to you so you can make sure you do all of the part correctly and you get a grade. You can can feel proud of on that quiz, okay? All right, so I just deleted fraction quiz, but I'm counting this assignment as a fraction quiz, okay? All right, Mar,